It's the start of a new week and time to recap the latest aviation news, featuring engine news, a brand new order, another potential major order coming soon, a 787 problem, and a whole lot more. So buckle in and stay tuned.
People 851, turn right heading 180. Order 14 Papa, turn right 245, report localizer established 27.
Earlier this month, Airbus and Rolls-Royce entered into an agreement that would see the Airbus A350-900s be powered exclusively by the Rolls-Royce Trent XWB engines. It's a groundbreaking deal for the engine manufacturer and, of course, aircraft manufacturer that extends their prior commitment for at least another 9 years through to 2030. While nothing has been decided after that, it would leave Rolls-Royce as the engine provider for a whopping 2 decades. An incredible achievement for them on one of the most popular wide bodies there is. As for the Airbus A350 and engines, I mentioned that past 2030, nothing had been decided in regards to powering the jet. But Rolls-Royce is already currently working on its UltraFan high bypass engine, which is seeing final assembly take place this year. On top of that, Rolls-Royce has noted themselves that they're continuing to work on other projects away from the Trent XWB, the UltraFan, and even Airbus. These particular projects will be centered within the aviation industry, and they note that their current goal is to roll out these new projects to the public and more widely to the industry at the turn of the new decade, that being from 2030 onwards. So this new agreement for the following 9 years fits in perfectly with not just Airbus's plans regarding potentially future aircraft, but also Rolls-Royce's future engine plans. Meanwhile, Air China and GECAS, a leasing company, announced late last week that they had signed an agreement with Airbus for a total of 18 of the A320neo family aircraft. It's an order that is made up of 5 of the A320neos and then a total of 13 of the longer-range A321LRs. Not to be mistaken for the up-and-coming Airbus A321XLR, or extra long range as the 3 letters at the end suggest. The European aircraft manufacturer based in Toulouse has worked continuously on further developing the A321 series, specifically in order to make it even more attractive for customers worldwide, especially nowadays as airlines look for efficient narrow-body twin-engine jets in the middle of the market sector, and Airbus currently has free rein at this sector, with Boeing delaying or even potentially scrapping plans for their own NMA that was dubbed by many years ago to be known as the 797 aircraft. Of course, one of the few remaining naming plans, if you will, or naming arrangements that Boeing can select, as naturally they usually go with the 7-something-7. Now, with that being said, analysts have also predicted that the NMA sector will be very, very valuable for both Airbus and Boeing, and I'd argue more generally aircraft manufacturers worldwide, with prior to the global pandemic, analysts specifically noting that 4,000 total units could be ordered within the next couple of years for that market. Of course, though, I would argue that thanks to the pandemic, a lot has changed on that front, and there's the potential that it won't be as many. But at this point in time, like I've mentioned, Airbus has free rein. We've recently seen Comac come into the scene, but to what capacity they really shake up the industry, we'll have to wait and see on that front. Moving across to the big feature, I guess you could argue, for today's aviation news recap, and that's with the Boeing 787 once again, as the aircraft has encountered another potential new problem. The aircraft series has recently been plagued with seemingly issue after issue involving the aircraft. This time, however, it has to do with the cockpit windows, as searches for flaws with the aircraft that have slipped past quality assurance tests continue. Some of the 787s with the aircraft manufacturer are seeing their flight deck windows, otherwise known as cockpit windows, that are in what is, according to people familiar with the matter, a very small batch seeing issues appear. These issues come specifically from a supplier of the windows modifying how they go about their production methods and overall process. Boeing is now double checking as a precaution to ensure that they're all taking the same precautions that they usually would to build these particular windows. Boeing and their engineers are currently working at a rapid pace to also ensure that they can recommence delivering the 787 Dreamliner, something that would ideally happen sooner rather than later, to ensure that the aircraft series can return to somewhat normality, something it's been missing for some time. Boeing has said that they expect by the end of March to commence deliveries for the type. However, this delivery plan could be adjusted if their inspections lead them to find anything else, and naturally, of course, if they have any findings coming specifically from the cockpit windows that are a detriment to the overall safety of the aircraft, and therefore passengers and crew that will fly on board. While the 737 MAX has been stored around Boeing's plants recently, deliveries have commenced for that plagued aircraft. Now it's the much bigger 787, which is being stored around plants and also in the Californian desert, as Boeing awaits the confirmation that aircraft can not just return to service, but they can recommence those deliveries. Obviously, in this sense as well, they want to make sure they can get it right the first time, straight off the bat, rather than welcoming the plane back to service and restarting deliveries, only to then encounter a new problem that would put the planes back on the ground parked up. Even if the specific issue has nothing to do with Boeing themselves, and has to do with something like that of an engine, or even as simple as a window that, as we know, comes from an exterior company and just so happens to be placed on a Boeing aircraft. Because of that, Boeing therefore takes the blame, as the aircraft overall is theirs. The general public, and I would argue a lot of people, not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that, will not specifically look at the company that, say, built the cockpit windows. They'll strictly focus on the Boeing 787 and Boeing as an aircraft manufacturer, which, as we know, has already been encountering enough problems in the past 24 months, to say the least. With so many issues that have plagued the jet, it's not taken long for customers to begin to get a little bit concerned with the aircraft series itself. Now, the perfect example is thanks to Bloomberg and comes directly from the CEO of the Air Lease Corporation, who has essentially noted that the issues impacting the 787 have continued to mushroom, and that's a quote from him, and they're greater and greater after every inspection, which is not great. Air Lease Corporation is a big customer for the 787 aircraft. However, naturally, these aircraft then go on to other airlines. They did not necessarily stick with the Air Lease Corporation branding, as they're not an airline themselves. However, it doesn't mean that they aren't currently happy with the 787 and the situation, while having it within their business's operations. The Dreamliner is an aircraft Boeing will continue to work on for some time, and naturally they'll always be wanting to improve that, and hopefully in the future rid it of any issues, either big or minor. The Australian carrier Qantas has in recent years been debating on what aircraft to order to replace its now aging 737s. These 737s are used on their domestic services within Australia and can also be seen as far wide as New Zealand. However, as they age, the airline is looking more and more to replace them, thanks to the Australian Financial Review Business Summit, at the same time as learning more about Project Sunrise, the ambition to fly from Australia to London and also New York non-stop. We learnt more with regards to the 737 MAX and A320 Neo order, with the airline looking at one of these aircraft to take them through to the 2040s. Almost halfway through the century, and as for their existing aircraft, CEO Alan Joyce has said that they need to replace all their domestic and narrow-body aircraft over this coming decade. He notes that an order could potentially be coming very soon, or at least he hinted at this, by saying that they could snag a good deal at this current point, as aircraft are more affordable than ever. With them desperate for orders, airlines can leverage prices and deals and get planes on the cheap. We've already witnessed this with the 737 MAX in recent months. As for their A330-300s, the airline has noted that they're going to be introducing these on an increased rate on their domestic services, focusing on the busiest routes, as the Airbus A330 can actually boost capacity by 70% and comes with close to 300 seats. The aircraft, therefore, is going to be perfect while it cannot be utilised on their international network, which, as we know, has been suspended for quite a while and will look to be suspended well into the future. With that being said, that's going to conclude today's aviation news recap. We recently got a vanity link to the Discord server with close to 2,000 members. If you do wish to join that, we have an active community there, and I would love to see you all in there. Until then, feel free to comment on any of the stories that I discussed, whether it be with regards to the 787 problems, Qantas, or something else. Take care and be safe.